her favorite genre, and she loves these type of movies.
That's the best.
She's made like this little personality for her, which is great.
Like a docuseries. I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah. Oh, yay, we're live!
Woo-hoo!
Oh, this is going to be fun.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Welcome, Digitailers. Welcome, everyone. I am so thrilled that you are with us. First of all, I want to introduce our special guest, Melissa Allen. She is a double board certified lifestyle medicine professional and a health and wellness coach with a master's degree in clinical psychology from the University of Central Florida.
Ooh, go Knights.
Yeah.
That's our mascot.
This is a long list. So she specializes in helping veterinary professionals build sustainable health-promoting habits that support their physical, mental, and emotional well-being. With a background that spans animal training, mental health, and wellness coaching, Melissa has worked with first responders, combat veterans, cancer patients, survivors, and healthcare workers, including frontline teams during the COVID-19 pandemic. It was during this time that she saw a gap in support for veterinary professionals and made it her mission to change that. Melissa co-authored a chapter on prioritizing well-being for healthcare professionals in mental health and wellness in healthcare workers, a testament to her dedication to supporting those who dedicate their lives to others. And she also brings her expertise to vet teams and organization, blending mental health insights, well-being coaching, and lifestyle medicine to create real practical solutions for the unique challenges of veterinary medicine. Oh, and if you're into a no BS approach to wellness like I am, she's also the author of Healthy Living Doesn't Have to Suck, a guided well-being buddy journal series that you can grab on Amazon. Welcome.
Yay. Thanks so much, Heather. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here with the Digitail team again.
Yay. We love to have you.
Yay. Well, let me go ahead and pull my slides up so that way we can see what is going on here. And I did see Carrie says hi from frozen Denver. Carrie, I am in Orlando, Florida, so I hate to break it to you. I'm not frozen. We do have a little bit of sunshine here today, but thanks for being on. All right. Well, we are going to be talking about matters of the heart today, right? February is Heart Health Month, and we just finished celebrating Valentine's Day. So all these matters of the heart. But if you caught our little promo reel that was on social media, like, what if your heart just doesn't feel like it's in veterinary medicine right now? What if you feel a little disconnected from your driving reasons behind coming into this profession in the first place? So that's a little bit about what we're going to talk about together today. And we do want this to be interactive. So I have the chat pulled up. Carrie, I do love living in Orlando. Yes. But Denver is a great city to visit. I prefer to sweat my butt off than freeze my butt off. So that is where I live. Heather was just showing me with some of the snow that she got over the weekend. And I was immediately like, this is why I'm here. Oh, all right. A quick disclaimer when we're talking about some of these mental and emotional well-being things. Obviously, like, I am not your mental health professional. I am not your healthcare provider. This is not meant to be a solution to all of your problems. I wish it could be, and I could wave a magic wand and make that happen for you. But this is more about helping to equip you with some different behavioral and psychological skills that can support you through challenging times. So that's what we're hoping to accomplish in today's webinar, is reconnecting to your purpose and passion in veterinary medicine. Heather gave me a great intro. I do want to share a couple fun things on here too. So as she mentioned, I'm a former animal trainer, and I did work for a couple years at SeaWorld Orlando, which is actually where I met my hubby. So we just got married in November, had a great time. And I'm a former mindfulness skeptic. I share that because some of the things that we talk about today focus on the present moment, which is very much all about mindfulness. And I used to think mindfulness was more about sitting quietly for like 5 to 20 minutes, not having a thought in your mind besides maybe like the phrase om. And that's just not what mindfulness is about at all. So now I'm a huge mindfulness advocate. It really does help us to stay connected to the here and now and get us unstuck from those unhelpful spaces of thinking, like getting stuck thinking about the past and things that we can't go back and change or do anything about, which often leads to depression. And then on the flip side of that, if we get stuck worrying about all the what ifs and what might happen and events that could or couldn't happen, that can lead to a lot of anxiety. So mindfulness helps us to recognize when we've drifted into either of those unhelpful spaces of thinking and bring ourselves back to the present moment. Now I have our logo up here and this adorable golden face. This is the legacy and the namesake of our brand, Sweet Buddy. He was my 13-and-a-half-year-old golden lab mix, and he was a certified therapy dog for many years. So one of the things that I really wanted to create with Veterinary Wellbeing Buddy was infusing his energy and legacy into the brand. And one of the things that happened when we were volunteering as a pet therapy team, so we'd be walking down the halls of the hospital and people would just smile. He was missing his lower canine. You can't really see it on here, but it was missing on this side. He used to have really bad separation anxiety, chipped it in half, had to get it extracted. It was the whole thing. But what ended up happening was his tongue would flop out sideways and it was adorable. So he just looked goofy. He would make people laugh and smile. But also, whenever people were facing a really difficult and challenging time, he could help comfort and support them in those moments with his like calming and soothing energy. So that's really what I strive to bring into the brand as well, having like that mixture of humor infused education kind of programs, but also being able to comfort and support through challenging times that are often faced in veterinary medicine. Again, just here's that quick disclaimer. So this is meant for educational purposes only, and not meant to be any kind of medical advice or intended to substitute for seeking professional services. All right. What are we talking about today? Hey, Lucy. Oh, I just hopped over to the YouTube chat. See you there. Hi. Thanks for being here. All right. So as we're looking at our objectives, we want to have a brief research overview just to kind of get a feel for what the science shows us behind why being connected to our purpose is important. Also going to have, again, some of those interactive activities where you'll get to do like a little personal assessment of what your values are, and then be able to identify what kinds of actions and behaviors support those values. Finally, we're going to wrap up with developing your personal mission statement. This is a great thing to have that you can revisit. So actually writing it out or printing out the template that I'm going to give you and having that somewhere that you can see it on a regular basis is going to help keep your why front of mind for why you came into veterinary medicine and what you find fulfilling about it. So our first step is educate. So let's talk a little bit about purpose. There is purpose and meaning in everything that you do, whether it's cleaning kennels, whether it's allowing yourself to rest and recover, get a good night's sleep. There is purpose and intentionality behind all of those things. So when we're thinking about a sense of purpose, what does that bring up for you? What kinds of things do you think of with a sense of purpose? Let me hop over into the chat one more time. Y'all can feel free to share your answers there if you like. I know for me, I kind of think back to, oh gosh, when I was 4 years old, my parents took me to SeaWorld San Antonio. And that was the first time that I got to see like the dolphins, the killer whales, the sea lions, and all of that. And in that moment, I was just like, man, I want to work with these animals someday. Like it was just so fascinating to me to see one, the relationships that were built with the animals, but also like the actual process of training the behaviors was what really stood out to me. So that was something that really kind of stuck with me over time. And thinking about a sense of purpose, I was like, oh man, not only would that be just cool to do, but I'd get to be the one to introduce these kiddos that would be coming to the park to these animals for the first time and inspire that same sense of awe and passion for wildlife conservation. So those were kind of some of the things that came up for me when I was thinking about that sense of purpose. I was like, ooh, this is nice. It feels like it's what I'm meant to do in the world. And I guess that's kind of the spoiler alert. Like it kind of has that feeling behind it of what you feel fulfilled with, what you feel like you're called to do. But ultimately, that sense of purpose is also just kind of like viewing our lives as having meaning, right? Whether that's career related, it could be family oriented as well. So maybe your sense of purpose feels like, dedicating your time and energy and attention to your family. Maybe it's something along the lines of volunteering your time to a cause that's meaningful to you. That gives you a sense of purpose. And when we're looking at maybe some of the things that we do on a day-to-day basis that if we're not in the best place emotionally or mentally could really have a drain on us, it's helpful to revisit that purpose behind, like, why are you doing what you're doing? Because at its most basic, a sense of purpose directs your actions and your behaviors. So when you're thinking about the purpose and intentionality behind your actions in the clinic, what's the purpose of cleaning the kennels? Probably to reduce disease from going from one place to another. Any kind of like bloodborne pathogens and stuff, those have got to get cleaned up. So we want to keep it sanitary for our patients to help promote their optimal health with the situation that they're put in at the moment. What's the purpose of placing a catheter? To administer medications, to draw blood. Like those are all of the things that have purpose behind these skills that maybe you've just done them so many times that it feels like second nature now. What about the purpose of making reminder calls to clients? Because everyone's got a busy life. They may have made that appointment, forgot to put it in their calendar, and your call was their sense of relief to be like, oh my gosh, I almost would have missed this if you hadn't given me this call. So thinking about it in those ways is going to help you to not get so caught up in the daily grind of why am I doing this? Because there is purpose behind it. If y'all think of examples, please feel free to share your own in the chat as well too. But I wanted to move on to Ikigai, which is a Japanese concept that means a reason for being. There's a really cool initiative called the Blue Zones, and it's been a study of the different communities across the world that have the highest number of centenarians. And those are people who live to be 100 or more. And in those communities, they found like the common 9 different factors, lots of lifestyle related things, but with Ikigai, it's that sense of purpose. So they wake up every day feeling like they have something to contribute to the world, whether it's still a job that they show up to, or if it's caring for their family, or if it's, again, going and volunteering their time, or playing music, or creating arts and crafts. Like there's something in their lives that feels like it gives them that sense of purpose. It could be teaching. Maybe you're mentoring new veterinary students and teaching them the ins and outs of the clinic life at your particular location. Whatever that looks like, there is purpose and meaning within all of these different aspects of your life here. So let's take a little tour around this model that we see. On the outside, we have what you love. And then we have what the world needs. We have what you can be paid for and what you are good at. In between these, we have what you love and what the world needs is your mission. What the world needs and what you can be paid for is your vocation. What you can be paid for and what you're good at is your profession. What you're good at and what you love is your passion. And so all of these come together to create that sense of purpose. It's a combination of the words iki, which means alive or life, and gai, meaning benefit or worth. So that's kind of the origin of this Japanese concept of ikigai, being that reason for being or something that gives you a sense of purpose. So maybe you haven't considered what some of these things on the outside are. And if you take time to maybe revisit, like, okay, what are all of the things that I can be paid for? What does the world need more of right now? Which we kind of know that there's a shortage of veterinary professionals out there. So that vocation is probably pretty strong. What are some of the things that you're good at? Maybe you actually have a lot of administrative skills. So looking at moving into a role of something like a practice manager could be something to consider. And then what is it that you love? So trying to weigh out all of these different options, and whether it's looking at it related to veterinary medicine or not, giving yourself an opportunity to really reflect on some of these things. All right. So some of the impacts of purpose on our well-being include promoting our physical health. So we have reduced risk of chronic conditions and premature mortality, which is kind of demonstrated by the blue zones, right? We can see that if people are living to be 100 or more in these higher concentrated communities, and purpose is one of those 9 lifestyle factors, probably something pretty important. Tend to get better sleep quality, stronger immune functioning, higher engagement in health promoting behaviors, and lower levels of cortisol, which is a stress hormone. So, high levels of cortisol have been linked with things like anxiety, depression, weight gain, headaches, digestive problems, muscle tension, heart disease, high blood pressure, sleep issues, and memory and concentration impairment. So, yeah, cortisol regulates our fight or flight response, which is also known as our stress response. And being able to connect to that sense of purpose can help to lower those levels of cortisol. Other things that can help lower cortisol as well are physical activity, because physical activity helps us to actually like train our heart to handle stress better, right? It's intentional stress on our heart, our lungs, and our body that helps support our performance as well. Mixing a little bit of lifestyle medicine in there too. Which, hold on, I'm going to take a time out because, okay, y'all heard like I'm a board certified lifestyle medicine professional. Cool. Maybe you don't know what that means. Really quick tidbit. Lifestyle medicine is evidence-based. It's actually a subspecialty of the medical field that focuses on using our lifestyle behaviors on a therapeutic level. So that means looking at things like movement as medicine, so physical activity, food as medicine, nutrition, sleep, stress management, positive social connections, and reduction of risky substances. So those are the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. Wanted to throw that in there really quickly since we're talking about physical health, but it also relates to mental health too. So we talked about how we can lower stress levels, stress hormone levels of cortisol, but we can also reduce mental and emotional stress. We can reduce symptoms of depression, anxiety, and loneliness. There does tend to be a lower risk of burnout because you're staying connected to your why, which also enhances your quality of life. All right, I'm going to do a pup quiz and no, you're not getting graded on it. But does anyone know what the opposite of burnout is? It's not something that's usually talked about, but it's really important to know because we want to focus on the solution to the problem, right? So, what is the opposite of burnout? It's actually a term called engagement. So, engagement we can see over here on the right side of the diagram. It's characterized by vigor, dedication, and absorption. That's not thinking about like absorption of vitamins and minerals, right? Or absorption of a sponge. It's more about absorption in the activity that you're engaging in. So absorption in your work. You find that state of flow, right? Where time is kind of flying by easily. That's going to be some of the, Carrie had a really good guess with compassion satisfaction. Lucy, yes, you knew it. It was engagement. Yep. No, Carrie, it's not your bad. That was a great guess. And yeah, compassion satisfaction is the positive antithesis of compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue and burnout kind of go hand in hand, right? So that was a really great guess. Thank y'all for putting that in the chat. And yeah, engagement Again, the positive antithesis of burnout, which is characterized by exhaustion, cynicism, inefficacy. And we can see that on this spectrum, there are all of these different factors that contribute to these things, right? So you could be staying connected to your purpose and engaging in all of the pillars of lifestyle medicine and everything that's recommended, but you could still potentially develop burnout because it's such a complex and multifaceted issue based on what we see here, all of these driving dimensions. And again, this is from a study in human healthcare because, as we know, the literature is beginning to grow with veterinary medicine specified focuses, but we still got a long way to go. So, in the meantime, we tend to translate a lot of the research that has already been done in physician well-being and translate that over into the veterinary profession. All right. So, taking a moment to kind of pause, pun intended, thinking about what led you to a career in veterinary medicine. What was that defining moment where you were like, I think I'm going to go into veterinary medicine? I kind of shared my experience of that with animal training. But when it came to making my career pivot into being more of a lifestyle medicine coach, that came when I was teaching group fitness. I really was on the path towards seeking my license in mental health counseling. But I fell in love with fitness during graduate school, and I wanted a profession that could help kind of complement that instead of having to stay siloed with all of the rules and regulations that you find in mental health counseling. I wanted something that could complement my fitness, my passion for group fitness with a little bit less restriction. And so that's where health and wellness coaching and lifestyle medicine came into play. But Heather, I don't know if do you want to share what led you to a career in veterinary medicine?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So I actually went to college for fashion arts and business after high school, and it was in my second year. I was doing quite well. It was a fascinating course, and no, I can't sew clothes. Um, but yeah, it was in my second year that I really realized that although I did love what I was learning, that the fashion industry specifically was not for me. So I, after college, went home, ended up getting a job at the local pet store because I'd always loved animals. I mean, everyone in vet med loves animals. This is nothing new.
Mhm.
But then working in the pet store, I found myself in a position of educating people who were coming in looking to purchase small pets, birds, and really not being familiar with their requirements, their living requirements, their habitat requirements, and their enrichment requirements, and like what kind of investment, financially, emotionally, physically, that this would potentially mean for them. And I found that I really excelled in that educational aspect, and obviously caring for the animals was a huge perk.
Yeah.
But I had family members in a medical background, and I thought, well, I love science and medicine, and I love this educational aspect in the animal husbandry. So I kind of put them together and started working at clinics.
Oh my gosh, that's an amazing story. I love the trajectory of that and how it, ultimately led you to veterinary medicine. And I'm giggling a little bit because I'm seeing Lucy's comment in the chat where she's like, well, because you get sued if you kiss your patients in human medicine. And yes, that is true, but you can give kitty kisses and puppy snuggles all day, and there's nothing wrong with that. Carrie said, because I felt the patients would love me. Ooh, I would love to know more about what you mean by that, Carrie. Like, was there a specific moment, like in your childhood, where like you were almost like Snow White and the animals just like kind of came to you and you felt connected to them? Like, that's, oh, Lucy, that one got me. That was pretty funny. But this is a really helpful question, again, to reflect on your own journey, because when we find ourselves in a really low mood state, we forget, again, why are we doing this in the first place? So that kind of leads into the next reflection prompt that I wanted to offer, which is, what are some of your favorite memories in veterinary medicine? So thinking about what are those periods of time that you just look back on and it makes you smile, it makes you laugh, it just warms your heart, right? So thinking about all of those kinds of like the highlight reel of your career. And I'm trying to get ahead of myself right now. I'll have some additional tips for ways that you can put these things somewhere that you can refer back to them when you need them. Oh, Carrie, yeah, I don't think you are alone in being bullied by other kids. I know I was definitely bullied too. And yeah, pets hold that space of non-judgment and comfort and support, bonding better with pets. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And favorite memories of vet med is anything that makes me laugh. Yeah, I think about oh my gosh. Since I don't work directly in veterinary medicine, but I worked vet med adjacent while I was an animal trainer. And one of the things that I was so proud of was training a voluntary ultrasound for one of our younger dolphins. And the vet's like, we were all high-fiving afterwards and stuff. And that was just such like a cool moment, to feel like we were able to do this procedure with so much less stress than it would normally cause for this dolphin. So having that, like, from a behavioral perspective, I was very proud of myself, but it was also cool to see all of us, like cheering afterwards when we succeeded. So yeah, that's one of my favorite memories. Do you have any that you want to share, Heather?
I think for me, it's hard to pinpoint one specific one. I think my favorite kind of thing from vet med was always connecting with the pet parents. I mean, again, I kind of am assuming that the animal interactions and the love for your patients we'll take that as read, but I really found so much value in bonding with the pet parents. You have these longtime patients that are coming in, you kind of watch them grow up, you watch them get older. And one specific relationship that I can remember was with a senior cat in kidney insufficiency named Malachi. And he would come in for his sub-Q fluids weekly. And I loved my visits with Malachi and his mom. That's probably one of my favorites.
Oh, I love that. And that even just made me smile, like, as you were sharing that, because you can like feel your energy behind recalling those memories too. So that's another really cool thing that even to do with your teams is if you do something like gratitude rounds or spoiler alert, I call it my smile file for like where I keep all of the things that have brought me joy, like in my career, or kind words that people have shared with me. So that way there's something tangible that I can go back to remind myself of that feeling of fulfillment and meaning. So those are some of the things that I've found helpful. Carrie shared the dog that stole the fish pillow out of the basket and had to take it away because it had to take its deceased cat friend. Oh, hold on. I need to reread this. The dog that stole the fish pillow out of the basket, I had to take away its deceased cat friend. Oh no. So the deceased cat friend had a cat pillow in the basket and I think the dog stole it. Yeah, no, I'm just picturing like everyone chasing after the dog now to try to get the fish pillow back for this poor cat. That was probably its like last act of defiance as like a pet friend. Like, see on the other side of the rainbow bridge, I'm gonna steal your fish pillow for me in the meantime. Oh my gosh, thanks for sharing that one. That's funny. Okay. Here is our empower section. And we kind of led into it by stopping for a moment and reflecting on those questions. But identifying what gives your life purpose does require that thought and reflection. So creating that time and space in your day or your week or your month, it can be really helpful. And I wanted to share a quick little survey that you can use. And it's rated on a scale of 1, strongly agree, to 7, strongly disagree. This is just a survey that helps give you an opportunity to do like a little self-assessment. So the first question is, I live life one day at a time and don't really think about the future. If you're an anxious Betty, such as myself, that one usually gets more towards like the strongly disagree side. It's definitely difficult to manage like not thinking about the future when you're having anxiety. So give yourself grace with these questions as well. This is not like a pass fail kind of thing. It's more to just provide general insights for you to see where you might want to start making some additional improvements. So in the case of this first question, if I do answer on the lower end of the spectrum, I could look into things about like, well, what helps me manage anxiety better? And that could be, practicing mindfulness or going to support groups or building new skills or seeing a doctor to see if medication is needed. So those are all things that it's meant to help you reflect and start to think of some solutions to help you enhance those levels that you might not be as satisfied with. 2 is I have a sense of direction and purpose in life. 3, I don't have a good sense of what it is I'm trying to accomplish in life. 4, my daily activities often seem trivial and unimportant to me. 5, I enjoy making plans for the future and working to make them a reality. 6, some people wander aimlessly through life, but I am not one of them. And 7, I sometimes feel as if I've done all there is to do in life. So you've accomplished your bucket list, you've done a lot of things that have been meaningful to you. And from this reflection question, you might want to take a deeper dive into what your purpose is. If you're feeling a little lost or disconnected from that purpose, here are some steps that you can take to help you clarify or revisit what that is. And the first thing is to start with your values. So going through the next list that I'll be showing you in a couple slides, you can start circling with maybe like the top 10 words that resonate with you most. Then you want to narrow that down to 5. And then you can even narrow that down to like your top 3 values, or you can keep it at 5. So there's no rules here. It's just meant to be a framework to help you. The next thing you want to do is you want to compare your values with your behavior. So, do you practice what you say is important to you? Do your values align with where you spend your time and your money? Do you show up in the world the way that would reflect those particular values that are important to you? And again, this is not meant to come from a place of self-judgment or like shaming and blaming yourself for not having your actions support your values. It's more about looking at it from a lens of curiosity and saying, ooh, yeah, I've kind of like drifted way off base with my actions that would be supporting these values. So what can I do to reorient myself back on that path? And then explore ways to live your purpose. So maybe you try an activity related to what you feel your purpose is. You could, be going as a shopper and bringing supplies to the local pet shelter. You could be volunteering your time, taking the dogs on walks, going and snuggling with the cats at a local cat cafe. Like, think about some of those things. Obviously, I'm giving vet med related examples, but it could branch outside of that too. So reflect on if there's something that is important to you, and if there's an activity that kind of aligns with that or supports that. See if there's opportunities in your week to start just donating a little bit of time at a time. Or you could write letters to the shelter workers, right? Just provide like a nice little support staff uplift. So there's lots of different ways to do this. There's no right or wrong way. It's about finding what works best for you and what is most meaningful to you. Okay, so values. We're talking about them a little bit, but maybe you're like, well, what are values in the first place? So, as you could have probably kind of picked up, these are our desired qualities of action. So, how we want to show up in the world, how we want to behave, how we want to treat ourselves and others, the world around us. And this is the definition taken from Dr. Russ Harris, who wrote a series of really good books that use acceptance and commitment training. And that, as it kind of states, acceptance is about accepting our unhelpful thoughts and difficult emotions in a way that is mindfulness based. And commitment is committed to our values. So clarifying those values and choosing actions that are committed to those values. So that's what acceptance and commitment training refers to. One of his books is The Happiness Trap. He also has The Confidence Gap, The Reality Slap. So those are all books that use acceptance and commitment training techniques to help you deal with things like grief and confidence and happiness. So when it comes to defining our values, we want to think about what is important to us, who is important to us, what kind of person do we want to be, and how we want to be known. So answering those questions is going to help you think about what are some of those qualities that would be reflected. So if you're thinking about, well, I want to be a compassionate veterinary professional. Well, what ways can you show compassion? Maybe it's making eye contact with your patient or with your patient's pet parent while they're talking about their concerns. Maybe you want to be a patient coworker. So maybe when you're training somebody new, you don't roll your eyes and huff and puff every time that they have a question, but you listen to them and you support them. So thinking about with these qualities of compassion and patience and kindness, what sort of actions would be supportive of that? But first, we want to find what those values are. These are some great prompts that you can go through to help you define those values. And this is by no means an exhaustive list, but a list of some popular values that people have shared in the past. And so take a moment and maybe look through some of these values that are listed. And if you would want to share in the chat, you can feel free to. And I should also preface this by saying values kind of shift and change over time, right? Depending on what phase of life you find yourself in. Maybe when you were a student, it was important for you to be hardworking and to have achievement and things like that. You wanted to get those good grades so you passed your classes. And then once you graduate, maybe it becomes more important for you to have like a love of learning and to see how you can effectively apply the knowledge that you learned. So you see how we're kind of like pulling out what those descriptor words are based on like different phases in our life. So take a moment, kind of review this list here. Carrie has a suggestion for Dr. Russ Harris's next book, which is cleaning up your crap. So keeping keeping the house clean, keeping your environment. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's funny. He tends to have rhymes that go with it too. So like the reality slap, the confidence gap. So cleaning up your crap could go with that too. He threw a ringer in there with the weight escape. So it was like a weight loss, a healthy weight loss kind of specific focused one. Anyway, coming back to our values. I know I have these on my website, but some of the values for Veterinary Wellbeing Buddy, like as a brand, are compassion and fun, positivity. So those are things that like as I'm going and thinking about presenting or thinking about, writing up something for one of my clients, I want it to have those elements that are fitting based on whatever the situation is. So thinking about your values here, again, you can kind of start with 10. And then once you narrow it down to those 10, try to see if you can bring it down to like 3 to 5. Because from there, once you've identified what some of those top values are for yourself, you're going to identify what kinds of actions and behaviors reflect those qualities that are listed. So if I'm thinking about making a social media post that I want to be filled with compassion, what would that look like? I would probably use one of the little graphics of Buddy with his paws over his heart, the cartoon Buddy with his paws over his heart, maybe his eyes closed with like a little smile and a nice little quote that talks about compassion. But when we're looking at showing up in the world and how that looks for you as a person, if your health is important to you, what kinds of behaviors are going to reflect that? So this gives you an opportunity to start thinking about what types of changes you might want to make in your life to help you better live aligned with those values. All right. And we're not going to take a lot of time on this because, again, try to create some space and time in your week or your weekend to maybe like enjoy your favorite beverage, go outside to your favorite place, and like give yourself that time to reflect on these things. Next, we want to think about what kinds of moments bring you joy. So, what are some of the things that just light you up, that you really enjoy, that energize you? And please feel free to share these in the chat, because this doesn't have to be vet related at all. It can be anything and everything in your life. If it's spending time with your kiddos, my personal one is going to a dance class. Like, I love learning new dances. So any kind of choreography based class is something that I absolutely love. So when you're thinking about these different probably activities that bring you joy, I also want you to follow that up with, when was the last time that you did that for yourself? Ooh. Heather, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have any thoughts about this one, or
I'm like, oh God,
insight?
this is like a trick question. I feel like I have not been doing a good job taking care of myself. I think that I'll use my fosters as an example, because I really do love being able to temporarily care for at-risk animals kind of in that vulnerable period when they're coming out of the current fosters that I have are from a hoarding situation. And then seeing them go off to their new homes. And then typically I connect with a lot of the adopters on social media. So I have some that I adopted. I actually have one friend who I adopted a cat from my very first shelter that I worked at, which was almost 10 years ago. And then I adopted her companion cat about 5 years ago. And I love being able to follow along with those stories. And I guess that's a bad example, though, because I should probably stay off social media, but that does bring me joy.
No, and I love that you kind of shared that too, because we will often find ourselves stuck in like the shoulds and the should nots. And there's a common phrase in like coaching in the therapy world that says, stop shoulding on yourself. So like try not to think about what you should or what you shouldn't do, but instead think about like what you could do or what you would do if you had more time, or if you have a busy week, like could you maybe just reduce your social media time? Like, so it's a very minor thing in language, but it makes a pretty big difference. So
I love that. I'm going to steal that. Stop
shoulding on yourself. It's catchy. I know. I forget, man, I quote this all the time, and I've looked it up. I can't even remember how many times, and I forget the guy's name who it originated from. So credit goes to him. That is not my phrase. But yeah, that's just something where, you know, even if it brings you joy in those moments, like create some time and space for yourself to engage in that. But also maybe be mindful about boundaries that you got to set too. So I love that you contributed that. And I'm going to pop over in the chat, see if anyone, oh, Carrie says learning something new. Yeah, absolutely. So then thinking about like, well, when was the last time that I did that? When did I create some space in my schedule to learn something new? So yeah, absolutely. Thanks, y'all. Okay. Engage is our next section. So these are some of more of the action-oriented things you can do to start, again, reconnecting or redefining what your purpose is in veterinary medicine. I alluded to this one earlier, but keeping a smile file. One of the things, again, that ends up happening when we're in that low mood state or we're burnt out or experiencing compassion fatigue is we have a really difficult time trying to recall from memory the good stuff, because you kind of have these blinders on right now that just keep you in that low mood state. So a smile file is something tangible that you can come back to and read through, and it helps to just kind of give you that little boost, right? I wish I could say that a smile file is going to help you beat burnout and prevent compassion fatigue anytime for the rest of your careers. That, again, just probably won't happen, because going back to our burnout and engagement spectrum, all those drivers and dimensions in there are what contribute to that. But having this smile file can help boost your engagement, right? So it can suppress burnout, promote engagement by reminding you of those good times and that feeling of fulfillment when you need it most. So I have a couple ideas up here. You can have your own journal for it. You can have a folder so that when clients write you like really sweet notes, you can put it in that folder and come back to and revisit. You can have a notes app in your phone. So if you want to keep your life clutter free, then you can scan it and put it in your notes app. So there's lots of different ways to do this. Again, there's no right or wrong way, but I definitely recommend having something that you can come back to and revisit that's not going to require you to try and recall it from memory. All right. So, bringing all of this kind of together, a personal mission statement is a great way to remind yourself of your values and to revisit and stay connected to your purpose. So, as we look at how to create a personal mission statement on here, again, you're going to revisit those top 3 to 5 values. So, as we're thinking about values shifting and evolving over time, your personal mission statement will probably shift and evolve over time. I love doing this activity like twice a year. So once in June, when it's like midway through the year, I kind of need that mid-year reset and refresh. And then in January to kind of start the chapter of the year off on a note that reminds me of my own why. So thinking about your passion or purpose. So what are you passionate about? What do you feel your purpose is? Maybe reflecting on some of your goals. So, as you were clarifying your values and revisiting your purpose, what are some of the changes that you want to start making that are going to help you live more aligned with those values? And then describing the kind of impact that you want to make. So, thinking about the patients that come into you, how do you want to impact their lives? What are some of the things that you hope to change in people's lives? So, that is something important to consider as well. So, we take all of this here and put it together in this nice little framework. So, we have to live, insert your values here, so that I can insert your purpose, passion, or impact that you desire to make. And I will do this by describe your value aligned goals and actions. So, this is again, you're going to be able to come back to this and hopefully you'll shoot me an email. And I'd love to hear what your personal mission statements are, or if you have time to do it today, drop it in the chat. We would love to hear it. But here is an example of my personal mission statement. So, to live energetically, compassionately, and intentionally so that I can continue to inspire others to live healthier and happier. I will do this by taking care of my own well-being, asking for support when I need it, and continuing to learn new skills through professional development. So there we go. You have an example, you have a framework, and now you're going to find time in your day or your week to figure out when you can sit down and really reflect on this. I'm going to give you some advice that it's probably not going to come out right the first draft. You may need to do a couple different iterations to really play around with it and see what feels like it resonates with you most. So when you look at it and you read it, it just re-sparks that passion for you working in veterinary medicine. You can do this career oriented. You can also do like a personal life version of this too. So, how do you want to show up for your friends and family kind of message? So, that's something that I really hope you'll take away from today, because one of my other favorite phrases is, they say knowledge is power, right? And that's kind of BS, because it's actually applied knowledge that's power. So, walking away from today, I hope that you will take some time to put what you've learned into action and take these steps to start revisiting your purpose, clarifying your values, and defining what kinds of actions will help you show up in the world in the way that you desire to. But all of that said and done, if there's one thing that you walk away with from today, it's that I hope you'll just remember to ask yourself on occasion, what is the first smallest positive action you can take today? We have this tendency of wanting to completely overhaul our lives overnight, and that's not the most sustainable route to do it. We may have some short-term results, but I hope that you'll be able to just take this question and come back to it amongst some of the other reflection prompts that were shared throughout today's presentation, so that you can remind yourself of your passion and your purpose in veterinary medicine. All right. So if there's any questions, feel free to share those in the chat. I do have a special offer for our Digitail users today. You can save 25% off of your first 3 months of my Veterinary Wellbeing Buddies membership. So it's a wellbeing education hub and community of veterinary professionals, students, and teams to come together and learn some of those different behavioral and psychological skills to support their career longevity in veterinary medicine. So we'll scan the QR code, or I can also, and I will also send Heather the information for the follow-up email after today's webinar. But I would love for us to stay connected. Again, I want to hear what your personal mission statements are. So once you get a chance to do that, here are all the places that you can connect with me. Instagram and LinkedIn, I usually hang out on a lot. And then you can always hit me up via email. Awesome. All right.
I think I have a question, Melissa.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've done some values work myself.
I love
and
that.
One of the things that I think was really important for me and might be beneficial for others was to think about boundaries when it comes to protecting your values. In addition to like using it as a kind of compass for your actions. Can you talk a little bit about that? Especially, I think, with veterinary medicine as context, having boundaries around your values, I think, is really great because it can help to kind of dictate, where you're working, what you're doing, and essentially what you were saying. But maybe you have a better way of saying it than I do.
No, I mean, a big thing with boundaries is that, like, it's helpful to ask yourself, like, what am I saying no to by saying yes to this? Because oftentimes we'll inundate ourselves with overcommitting, saying yes to everything, and that's going to rob us of time that we have to spend our energy investing back into ourselves or recovering from the stress that we experience. So I know a common thing right now is like everyone everywhere seems to be short staffed. And so you might compromise your personal value of taking that step back on your weekend so you have the time and energy to rest and recharge, because you might feel guilty saying no to that overtime shift. And those are all things to consider, where it's a very delicate balance between, like, you don't want to say no just to say no, but you also don't want to be the team player that's like the martyr, right? And that says yes to everything, runs themselves dry, goes through the bouts of burnout over and over and over again. So it's going to take some trial and error to really see, like, how can I still show up in the way that I desire to, that's value aligned, while also still showing up in my job, supporting my team, not feeling like I'm going to be living with that guilt and that weight of saying no. And I wish there was an easy answer for it, but it's truly going to be about just kind of exploring what are some of the different boundary setting strategies that work for you? How can you more effectively communicate versus saying like, no, I'm not going to do that, right? We don't want to sound bratty when we're setting boundaries, but it is a skill that we have to build over time to effectively communicate and set those boundaries for ourselves, or to even practice reinforcing boundaries that we've previously set over and over again. I think of family with that one. Like, there's been times that I've set boundaries over and over again, and it gets exhausting, but I always feel a lot more relieved and proud of myself if I like have to revisit that conversation again and stick to my guns. So it's again, a very art and science kind of blend, where there's no specific framework that's going to work for everyone, but it's truly about experimenting with ways that you can still live aligned with those values while being able to practice communicating those boundaries around your values.
Mm-hmm. And I think just like doing the values exercise and going through the thought process, being mindful about it, it can help to prepare yourself even for these unexpected situations that may come up, where you'll be put in a situation where you may be asked to, do an extra shift, and it may be, going slowly against your values, but you're not quite, you're not quite sure of it. I'm speaking from my own personal experience during the pandemic. I totally burnt myself out because I was focusing on the value of one thing, of getting animals home and making sure that I limited their time in the shelter and had successful adoptions and all of that. But I really kind of failed to put boundaries around my own personal well-being and what that meant to burn myself out. So I think like exactly going through this exercise and really putting some thought into it will help better prepare you to kind of safeguard yourself from these kind of pitfalls that happen in vet med.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we never want our values to like conflict against each other, right? There's a way that they can live in harmony without sacrificing on either end. But it does take that time and reflection to really sit down and think through, okay, well, like by, overcommitting myself at work, I'm like drained in my well-being. So if I want to show up as a supportive team member, but I'm like snappy and cranky and things like that, are you really doing a good job? Like, then you're compromising your value of being a supportive and, patient coworker. So I love that you shared that too, because I'm sure that there are people who are going to be able to relate to that. And it truly is a dance, right? And I hate using the word balance. I probably don't ever use like work-life balance in my presentations because they're never going to be equally balanced in your life. There's always going to be kind of like this tilt and teeter going on between like work is going to demand a little bit more of you, and then you're going to dedicate more to like your personal life to catch up and make up for that time. But I like to refer to it as like harmony, right? Or a groove. I like finding the groove, right? It's music based. So I find the groove, the life work groove in my life.
Yeah, I love that. That it's never equal because you're pulled in both directions because you care and because of your values. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I like that, finding your groove. I like it.
Yeah, because even, with your example, yeah, there could be times where you dedicate yourself a bit more to like making sure that these animals are getting home and getting placed. And you also need to figure out where you're going to make up for that time so that you can still support your own well-being.
Yeah, awesome. I think this was, I hope this was really beneficial. I loved it. I'm a big fan of, again, it's kind of a buzzword. I like how you kind of cop to that, the like mindfulness, but it's really important and there's a reason behind it. And if you don't take the time to reflect on these things and really kind of figure out your reasoning, your why, then it can sneak up on you. And I mean, life is going to happen whether you're prepared for it or not.
Life be lifin'. That's like my phrase lately is life be lifin', and we're just going to roll with the punches. And I know I shared this before we went live, but one of my favorite things to remind myself of like focus on what's within my control is I like throw up my ballerina arms and I'm like, what is within Melissa's bubble of control right now? Because this is where I need to be able to focus my energy and attention to cope with everything else that is outside of my bubble.
I love that. I can steal that one too. Yeah. Stop shutting and the ballerina arms. That's it.
Yes.
Amazing.
And I just, I popped over back onto YouTube and I saw that, yeah, Lucy shared work-life priorities. Yeah. Yes. So really taking the time to figure out those priorities and how they can shift and kind of, again, groove together, find that harmony so that it's not one completely taking over than the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because we are a combination. It is us, right? We are part of what we do and we are part of our, what we do for fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I didn't see any questions come through on YouTube. Okay. Oh, Lucy, thank you. Yeah. We're glad that you were able to join in and yeah. Oh, thanks for sharing those kind words.
Awesome. Well, I think we'll wrap it up, I guess. If no one has any other questions, I mean, I'm fine to be the only one with questions.
No, absolutely. I mean, people, like I said, you can always find me on the social media channels. It's usually at Veterinary Wellbeing Buddy. So try to keep it easy. And thank you for that QR code. Yes, this is where you can find me on all of the online places.
Yes. Yeah, we'll include all the information that Melissa was talking about as well in the follow-up email. So keep an eye out for that, and keep an eye out for our next webinar that's upcoming on March 25th on safe handling. So we'll see you guys later. Thank you again, Melissa. This has been great, and hopefully it was really beneficial to everybody who's tuned in.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. And to all of our participants, until next time, take care, stay healthy, and be well, everyone.